Hi, 8th graders. This is Module 6, Lesson 2. And if you didn't do the Spark Your Learning, I would encourage you to pause right here and go back and do that. It will help you get into the mindset of working with lines and thinking about the y-intercept and the slope and all that again if you haven't done it for a while. So let's look here. So go ahead and pause and do that. Otherwise, we can get started with the build understanding. So let's look at the vocabulary. There's a lot of highlighting here, so I'm also going to highlight in, I think, blue, and then we can look at this together. So they say the y-intercept of the graph is the y-coordinate of the point where the graph crosses the y-axis or the value of y when x equals 0. So we'll look at that a little bit more. You may already know this, but we'll look at that as we go through the lesson. A line, this is really important. So let's pick a different color. Let's do green. A line that passes through the origin can be represented by an equation in the form y equals mx. So that's a line that passes through the origin. That's really important. Can be represented by the equation in that form. So A says consider a line with slope m and y-intercept b. Write the ordered pair that represents the y-intercept. So they tell you when x equals 0, the value of y where it crosses that y-axis. So that is what you would do there. Um, Recall that slope is rise over run, or the ratio of a change in y to change in x. Complete the equation for the slope m of the line using the point from part A and another point in line on the line XY. So I'm going to have you try these on your own after we read through them, and then we'll go through them together. So C solves the equation for part B for Y. And then here they tell you this form of an equation is called the slope-intercept form. Super important. And D, identify the slope and y-intercept of each graph. So you should be able to do that without too much problem, but we'll look at that together as well. How do the coefficient m of x and the constant b in each equation relate to slope and y-intercept? And then here they tell you linear functions contain only points that lie on a straight line. And then here's from before nonlinear functions, the equation. This is from a previous lesson, but I brought these back in to just help remind you of this. So here they talk about nonlinear functions as well. The equation of any line that can be written in the form y equals mx plus b. The graphs of the functions whose equations cannot be put into this form are not straight lines. Such functions are called nonlinear functions. So that's just helpful, hopefully, to review that vocabulary. So pause here and then go ahead and work on this section A through E, and we'll come back and work on it together. All right, so let's look at this together. So they ask in A, consider a line with slope M and y-intercept B. Write the ordered pair that represents the y-intercept. So they're asking what's the point that you would ordered pair for the point where it crosses that y-axis. So they tell you up here the value of y when x equals 0. So that means we know that x is going to be 0, right? Um, and then the y-intercept, from the slope-intercept form is b. So that would be our ordered pair, 0, b. And then in section B, recall that slope is rise over run, or the ratio of change in y to the change in x. And so here we have the ordered pair 0b. And they say complete the equation for the slope m of the line using the point from part A, which is here, and another point xy. So if you remember, I don't know which module this was, but when you're talking about rise over run, and you can write it as in the form the slope equals the change in y, so it's like y2 minus y1, or the y from the second ordered pair minus the y from the first ordered pair over x2 minus x1, or, oops, x1, sorry, the x from the second ordered pair minus the x from the first ordered pair. So let's look at that in terms of what we have here. These are our two ordered pairs. So they're saying, so this is like y2, and this is like x2. So they're saying y minus, and where's our y here? B over x minus 0. So that's what goes in those two boxes there. So let's look at C. It says solve the equation from part B for y. So here's our y, little teeny y. So if we have m equals y minus b over x minus 0, we can say that's m equals y minus b over x, right? So I want to get rid of this fraction. I'm going to multiply this by x, and then I'm also going to multiply this by x. So now I have, this cancels this. So now I have m times x equals y minus b. Hopefully you're with me so far. So we're solving for y, so let's keep that in mind. So I'm going to add b to both sides. That'll get rid of that b, so that can get rid of that. So now I have m times x plus b equals y. And then because of the, I can't remember which property right now, I can switch those around and say y equals m times x plus b. And so you can see, here's our slope-intercept form. That's what they want you to end up with, that slope-intercept form there. So let's look at D, identify the slope and y-intercept of each graph. So they give you a lot of hints here. They show you the y-intercept. So here the y-intercept is 2. And I guess you could say, let's see if they want you to put it as an ordered pair. I don't think so. And so the slope, they give you this line here, so you could either use that, or you could kind of look at some of the other points on the line and see where, you know, the rise over the run. But if this is the slope here, the coefficient of x, that would be a slope of 1, because with nothing there, you know that that's 1 times x. So here is the second one. They give you this equation again. So our slope is that m, so the slope is -2, and the y-intercept here is +1. That's where that line crosses the y-axis when x equals 0. So here again, they give you the equation, and the coefficient of x is +3. The y-intercept is 0. So there are different ways to do that, but you might as well use the equations that they give you. It makes it easier. So E, how do the coefficient m of x and the constant b in each equation relate to the slope and y-intercept? So the coefficient m is the slope, and b is the y-intercept. All right, kind of squeeze that in. Okay, so that's the build understanding. Hopefully that helps you to go on to the step it out and the on your own for this lesson. So I'll see you in lesson 6.3.